Hi everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and I am here to do a walkthrough of this deck called Tarot of the Secret Forest. It is with the artwork I believe is by Lucia Mattioli, Mattioli, and it says each arcanum is portrayed twice, in color on the front and in black and white on the back, two sides that give the tarot a new dimension. Now this is a low scarabeo deck, and it also says this tarot traces a path to the heart hidden in nature, a magical place that could be found in the soul of each of us. Now what is really beautiful about this deck, I knew about this deck, and after talking to Shey, who has a channel here on YouTube channel, I'll put a link to it below. She had we had talked about this a while back. And I had put it on my Amazon wish list, but it had been a while, and it was funny because I had just kind of gone over, my list and was kind of cleaning things up, and she was sending me a booklet in the mail that she had made. Well, that's what I thought she was sending me in the mail, but she also, among some other treats, included this deck that we had talked about. And I had just put it on my re-look at this again list, because one of the things was that I assumed incorrectly, because I've had a little bit of a peek at it, I assumed that the back was just a black and white image of the colored image. But no, it's actually what it looks to me like is the pre-sketch before the actual finished painting. And it's interesting because there are differences, and there is a real power to some of those pre-sketches, even though the images themselves are absolutely stunning. So I tend to not go very close to tarot decks that are fairy related. That's not true. I have a couple, but I'm a little picky about them because I have a very specific way that I see Fae. So Tarot of the Hidden Realm is really powerful because it works for me. Brian Froud's fairies, his oracles are, very close to what I would see as Fae energy. I love Shadowscapes that does have Fae in it. That's a little less to how I actually see Fae energy, a little closer to the romantic period version, but I still love that particular deck. But I really don't have, actually those are the only two other, well no, I have the Hezekiah Tarot as well, so I've got some other ones. But I'm always hesitant around fairy decks because I have had such a strong connection with Fae energy since I was a child that, we get these very specific understandings, and there is a depth and a loamy earthiness and even a darkness, not in a negative sense, I mean sometimes, but about Fae energy that I don't often see reflected other than in like Brian Froud's artwork. It's even there, not entirely there, although it is also in Tarot of the Hidden Realms. And so this is very much one of the garden and the loamy earthness of the garden and earthiness, and the colors are very earthy, and there's insects and bugs. Insects and bugs are the same thing, but there's insects here, and it's just, I haven't gone through the whole deck, but just the tone of it really suits me well. So thank you, Shey, for taking away my I better go relook at that and just diving me in, because the few that I looked at, especially, I love, again, the paintings, but then the black and white sketching is absolutely gorgeous. So without further ado, let's zoom in here. It is, of course, a low scarabeo deck, so it does have a literal, they take Little White Book to a very literal place, don't they? Standard low scarabeo top box. She has already edged this deck, so it does not come that way. You will have to do it yourself, but she has been so gracious to even do that for me. So here's your Little White Book. Of course, you have to remember with most low scarbeos, only this much is in English, right? So we have a very a very small amount there. And so it doesn't really address the images that much. It does have a reading here. So it's usually at the back. Past, present, and future, and then a hopes and a fears here. So kind of a standard one. I am going to read this message from the actual artist here. In the ancient Japanese wisdom of contemplation and listening, insects were born from the decomposition of the vegetation that ferments in the earth. Each insect, therefore, appeared to be the best that alchemy had created for a certain species during the passing of a season. And so even the sound of the insects were in harmony with the sun and the wind characteristics of each month. Living on the edge of a forest, I can do nothing else but agree. Now, I'm familiar with the period of the courageous and hairy spiders and the month of those very green hopping grasshoppers. On September nights, I cry like an owl's sister. My garden forest isn't cultivated. It's not well tended. I don't have the courage to cut that tangle of brambles. I don't want to change anything. There's a special charm in the rebellious and extravagant vegetation, a charm that creates a stronger impression for my eyes than a well-tended garden. I therefore often stare at that profound and twisted green pit that surrounds my house, and I carve out single images, forms that can change with every breath of wind and animal. I think that is really beautiful. A journey on the path of a forest rich in references to traditional symbolism, limited by the usual interpretations normally recommended for the 78 one-sided cards. Now this path has suddenly given way to a forgotten garden without an enclosure or fencing, forgotten by all, and even more precious because it only reveals its secrets to us. The Tarot of the Secret Forest invites you to explore this corner of mysterious nature, far from the chaos and frenzy of our everyday lives, where brambles and brush entwine, where wild, fragrant flowers bloom on rich grassy carpets, where the rays of the sun filter through the foliage of trees, where silence is music. The Tarot of the Secret Forest can easily be used like traditional tarot cards. The following instructions, nevertheless, will focus in particular on the special characteristics of this tarot and its uniqueness. Even if the deck consists of the classical 78 cards, you actually have 156 cards available to you. Each card, in fact, offers a double interpretation depending on whether the colored side or the monochromatic side is red. So, it's very, very intriguing, isn't it? Now, I think it's interesting that I was just checking to see. If there are double. There is a regular keyword, and then there are keywords that are in italics. Again, there are just a few keywords here, so whether or not those might indicate how you might read both sides, I think personally you can probably come up with those yourself. Again, usually these little white books don't have a whole lot. So of course you have your, art cards here. And then we get into the deck. Now, it's typical low scarabeo size and typical, which is a little bit more narrow than a typical, say, a US Games deck. And of course, the backing is what is so amazing. So here we have a finished painting of a fairy creature, quite on the hunt here. When you flip it over, you can see that this is sort of a black and white. I don't know necessarily that it's a sketch. It looks like it could be sketched. It almost feels like it's done in charcoal. I'm not sure what these these paintings, of whether this is a pastels or what kind of medium these images are. But it almost looks like charcoal drawings on the back. And you can see differences. For an example, if you look closely at the headdress, you can see that has changed. Even the wing is quite different than the wings. Not quite. I mean, you still have 4 wings. We still have a creature, a bug creature here, and you still have undergrowth. But there is differences, and some there are more profound differences. What's interesting is this, he almost has his spear-like thing across his back, almost like he's just kind of, lollygagging his way forward, whereas in the front it feels a little bit more like he is getting ready to throw that spear. You can really see in this particular card, so here we have the magician, right? You can see this magic that's actually coming off, because what's in any fairy would work for the magician, right? The magic of the fairy is within them. Like, they are creatures of magic. So, just having a fairy present in a magician card for me works quite well. I do really like this side actually a little bit better. Again, you can see that the legs are in a different position. I actually like this positioning of the legs a little bit better. It looks a little more natural. You also can see that she has, or he or she has, a wand of some sort in his hand or in their hand. And again, you can see this magic. So there's definitely that creation of magic that is there. But in some ways, you can see it even more clearly here. I do like the use of light. This is the undergrowth, this is the brambles, this is the overgrowth of a forest, and it feels that way. You can still see the lemon scott here in this branch, which I think is really wonderful as well. But again, for me, any fae works in this position because we have that sense of that they are imbued with the magic that they need. This is quite beautiful. So here we have the Empress as obviously a queen of the fairy, or not the Empress, sorry. We have the High Priestess here, and she looks very regal. We still have the scroll. We have that sense here of deep mysteries just in the colorations. There is something to me very haunting about this black and white version here. You can see that the staff has changed. To me, this is a much more fae staff versus a cross, feeling much more Christianized. Even the headpiece here looks a little bit more like a pope, this would be a popus or a papus, right? And so you can see that reminiscent here in this particular version, whereas this side there's something a lot more fae in many ways, but they're both beautiful. Here's our Empress, which is again quite beautiful. She's beautiful. I love the body posture here. She looks completely engaged. She looks like she's leaning forward and engaged with the world around her. She has a staff with a globe on the top of it, which we do see reflected here. This one is quite similar to each other. There wasn't as much shifts and changes, but I do think that I just love being able to see sort of those beginning pre-sketches and then seeing the details for me. This is really a beautiful painting. Here's the Emperor. They're both kind of sitting on a similar plant here. But you can see that the greens, these are not spring greens, these are not sap greens, these are not Kelly greens, right? These are olivey, dark, in under the brambles, in the overgrowth, as I said, in the shadows of the forest, which is just, I think, absolutely gorgeous. Again, this one's pretty similar. Here we have a very active Hierophant, isn't he? He literally looks like he has just taken a leap and landed on this, I'm assuming is a berry, right? Because these are going to be quite small. This one's interesting because you have much more of that traditional Hierophant staff here, where it is a melding of that circular staff that we saw with the High Priestess. Actually, they're very similar staffs. She's got some twigs in the original. She has some twigs there as well as he has some there. So there is a little bit of a melding of the traditional with a much more of the spiral sense there. But I love this active wisdom, right? That's kind of what this makes me think of. Just because he isn't just sitting somewhere giving blessings to something. He is out and about in the process of life. Here we have the Lover's card, which is really lovely. I use, for me, the Lover's card is about choice. What's interesting is that I feel like with this one, and again, this is just a pre-sketching, right? But you get this very compassionate feeling here, whereas this almost of giving aid, where it feels quite different here, where they're reaching out to each other. I like her legs here as well. They're just really beautiful images. Love this Chariot. Very confident. Seems to be on the back of perhaps a dead bug, a beetle of some sort, with two bees pulling him forward. This is quite similar, but there is that strength and that confidence. There is that sort of understanding that things are difficult. But taking a hold of understanding, you know, with the Fae energy, with forest energy, there's no getting away from, right? There's no getting away from the fact that death and life are part and parcel, right? That they're all part of this cycle that's continually going on. And so living in that microcosm for these tinier Fae, right? There's just simply no escaping this factor. It's just part of the cycle of life. And so I really, I think that you feel that in these cards. Here we have Strength, of course, instead of a lion, which would just be ridiculous with a little Fae. We have, I don't know, what are these called? They're, it's not an elephant beetle. There's a name for these, and their pinchers are extremely strong, right? Because when you think of the size of them compared to like the torque that they can get, they're extremely strong. And so we have this traditional sort of force card, but instead with a Fae and a beetle here. To me, it's very clear that these cards were, like, sometimes some of these types of decks, you feel as if these were pre-existing artwork. I would certainly say, at least so far, that I feel like it's very clear that these were created for a tarot deck, and I appreciate that. Here we have the 9, the Hermit, which I think is really beautiful. He's sort of holding this glowing light in his hand. This sort of ball here, almost like a ball of dew that's reflecting light. Almost as like a jack in a pulpit or something here, which is also interesting. But instead of going off on a mountaintop, he's, you know, you can picture him at the top of a very tall frond or plant, and he has this, you know, glowing ball of light. He looks very contemplative, right? Or contemplative, as you might say, in this. He's definitely going inward. He's looking deep. He's considering things. So I think it's wonderful. I love his beard. And then we have the Wheel of Fortune. I love this because, see, we see the chrysalis. We see the caterpillar here, we see the cycle and the changes and the shifts and the turns of life. We do have a wheel, you know, round figure with the plant as well, but I feel like the true wheel here is in this understanding of the cycles here. And this could even be, is this caterpillar going to turn into a fairy butterfly? One never knows. One never knows. Here we have Justice. She has her scale. She has her sword. I love this two split here that we have, reflecting the balance of this plant. Again, this one's actually quite similar. I think it's just beautiful. This is a very powerful Hanged Man, isn't it? This is a sacrifice. This is very traditional footwork here, but we have a pin in the back of this Fae. She has been stuck and pinned. She's been caught and pinned. But because this is the Hanged Man, I mean, this could be the old thing of treachery and sort of the consequences, but there is certainly the sense of having given over to a situation here. I don't think this is one in which she is going to get out of, so it's a much more traditional Hanged Man here. Very powerful. Love the Death's Head Moth here, over the brambles and getting lost in the thicket of thorns here. How easy it would be to get into this and how difficult it might be to get out. How amazing is that? But very sharp, pointy. We certainly get the sense of death here. Here we have the beautiful Temperance card with the little tiny pots of water being pushed back and forth. She has very interesting wings here. In fact, I thought these were other than wings, something else, but we can see those are actually all part of her wings. But again, very traditional with the pouring back and forth. Look at the Devil. Oh, he's very awesome. Have you ever, I don't know if you've ever watched the, let me think of it. Let me think of it. I can hear the music. It's not Bug's Life. Might even be Thumbelina. Does she come upon a really creepy beetle? I don't know. There's a cartoon where there's a creepy singing beetle, and I'm totally blanking on it. But I think there'll be people who say, I know what that was. But yeah, he definitely looks like he's going to sting you. Again, very traditional devil. Works wonderful. Here we have the Tower. So this is a little harder to see what's going on, but it does appear to be that there's lightning going on in a tree. You don't see the lightning in the sketch here, but you definitely get the sense of falling. And the wings almost seem to be shredded here, which is what we have going on here. So it's almost like lightning or something struck and shredded. There's just no, for a creature who's flies, that must be a very, even more disconcerting than those of us who don't fly and are falling. Just no way to kind of catch themselves. So here we have the Star card, and of course the stars would be so far removed, right, from a little tiny fairy in the brambles of a forest, right? So I really love that we have these star flowers here, because the overhead for them would look very different unless they were out in the middle of a clearing, would look very different from them. So I really think that is quite lovely. I like that a lot. But we still get that sense of water here. Almost like that it's gone into maybe a bird bath, kind of going to the edge of, you know, so like this person, the artist who lives at the edge of the forest that might have a bird bath out and kind of slipping in there. But I really liked that touch there of the star flowers. Now, how powerful is this Moon card? This is very, very beautiful and powerful looking Fae energy, especially for, I mean, look at that. I really have to say on this one, I probably like the black and white even better. There's something gorgeous and dark and mysterious here as they look up through the branches into the seeing that beautiful full moon. That's stunning, but then this is also just gorgeous. They're both beautiful. And I love this. I love we have both these figures here, and this is so beautiful because just the way that it's shaped, while they're each individual, then the two of them together create this beautiful connection. It's a little bit different where we see them almost looking at each other and joined and their wings going off. I really like the position of this where they're sort of looking up to the sun and their wings sort of wrapped around. I don't know, there's just something gorgeous and beautiful, and the two of these together are really gorgeous expressions for me of the sun and the moon. Here is the I'm assuming this is sort of a chrysalis perhaps of some sort with they have the judgment as end and beginning. Yeah. So it looks as if this Fae is coming out of a chrysalis, is being born out of a chrysalis. That's really gorgeous. Look, you can see another one over here. So it's literally that idea of rebirth from what they were into what they are going to become. And then the World card is pretty standard, right? You know, we have sort of a Laurel-like card here. It looks like she's standing on a rose. Again, you can see the concept drawing here. In this case, I think this is just beautiful. She looks really, this is a beautiful rose here. You know, he got the idea that he wanted a rose, but this one, I have to say, this side is just gorgeous. I mean, it's a beautiful major arcana, right? I love the earthiness. I love the tones here. I think that the black and the gold numbering, the black border and the gold numbering really suits this well. It looks like an old fairy book. It feels like a natural Fae environment of small Fae. It's really beautiful. The backing, you know, again, I think just adds dimension to many of the cards. That wouldn't affect me in terms of drawing, though if you've all watched my videos, you know how I sort of drop split, so it really, seeing the card, seeing what card it is on the back makes no difference to me in the way that I read. And I never place the cards face down and then turn them over. I have one reading that I do that, and that's a Lenormand reading. So for the most part, I never do that. So these backings don't hinder me in any way in the way that I read. So very gorgeous. So here we have the minors, which are not pips, I don't believe. No. Yeah, these are just gorgeous. Okay. So I pulled each one of the aces. You can see that whereas the majors had sort of a gold tone swiped across the numbers and the numbers on the front, at the top of the bottom, these suits have a blue tone for the swords, a red tone for the wands. They also have a symbol of their suit. A green tone, which I love for the cups, because again, the water in a darkened forest is not going to be blue, right? It's not going to be reflecting the sky. It's reflecting the vegetation all around it. I think that's stunning. And then sort of a yellow ochre color for the coins, or for the pentacles here, the coins. So I love that. I think that looks just stunning. So here we have, I mean, it's a gorgeous ace, and it's winged, which I love. Of course, many of these are. I think this, I saw this one when I was looking through. I think this is a really poignant two of swords. Let's just, I'm going to just take a peek at their choice. Yeah, it's the idea of they're just like, it's like they're, it's very contemplative again. The idea of, they just look like they're looking off and seeing sort of this decision. It's really beautiful. There's just this like, okay, where am I going to go from here? It looks a little, I guess you could think of this more in the, sometimes you see in one of the wands where they're looking off like this, but I really like this. Oh, I didn't show you the bug here. I really like that. This is such an interesting Three of Swords, isn't it? I really love that they've kind of done their own thing. They do still have this labeled as pain and suffering, and there is definitely a sense of that, but I don't know, these almost look like they are the tops of fairies, there's less painful looking in this original, you know, like the little tufts that come off the dandelions. And taking root and growing, which is part of, for me, the Three of Swords, can be difficult, right? Are you going to land on hard ground? Are you going to land on easier ground? I love this. I really love that. Here we have the Four of Swords. I kind of wish there wasn't sort of a statuary here, just because it doesn't feel so foresty. But you know, sometimes you stumble. I've gone for walks in woods, and sometimes you stumble on this random little, sometimes it's a old grave marker, you know, but they didn't always, we're all neatly in a cemetery. So I can kind of go there with this. I love all the birds here. The keyword for this is silence and a need for solitude, which I think is really beautiful. I love this. Look at the porcupine. So we definitely have this, but this is interesting because they talk a little bit more about the instinct to defend here with the Five of Swords. But we definitely have that sense of ready for battle with the porcupine ready to shoot off its quills, right? This is a beautiful, you know, you don't have a ship. You don't have it, it's just gorgeous, but you still have that sense of movement away and going off into the horizon that I think is really gorgeous. Look at this Seven of Swords. I love this. So I'm not a huge fan of Rider-Waite Seven of Swords because it's just like, what, you know, it doesn't mean thievery to me, but it's come to mean looking deeper. And this is so gorgeous. And they even have this here about appearance and seeing with the emotions instead of the eyes. So seeing into the real heart of a situation, which really works for me. I mean, look at the sketch there. It's like a scorpion creature here, but she's seeing him. Like, that's like Avatar, I see you. Oh, I love that. Look at this this is just a stunning deck. This is like going to be my deck. I just love it that it's very clearly made for the deck and not just random artwork. Here we have the Nine of Swords, a little more Rider-Waite Smith. He's a little trapped in a creepy nightmare here, right? So we can definitely see that. Hostile thoughts is one of the key words on here. But there is that sense of overwhelm. And I think that the Nine of Swords does speak to overwhelm. It can be great, you know, active thoughts. It can be dark thoughts. It can be any kind, but just too much of it. This brain is just like in overload. And I think this does represent that. Look at this Ten of Swords. But I love this because look, there's all these ants that are attacking this poor spider here. Nobody is being, we don't have a sword stabbed in anybody yet. Not yet. There's not going to be any swords here. So again, we do have that sense of intensity. But they could also be working together. They could also be working together. This beetle or this spider here is going to have to come up with a new way of thinking to get out of this situation. I'll take it over 10 swords in a person's back. So this is a gorgeous, now it has, I look at this as like a cup for the page, which I love. They're new, they're learning, their cups are open and ready to be filled. So that to me is really easy. Sometimes these symbols at the top aren't clear. To me, this set is very clear. So this is, you know, he's ready for battle, but he doesn't have a horse yet. He's still got much to learn. Whereas look at this, I love this Knight of Swords. Like he is in the air on this beautiful little bird. Yeah. Look at the Queen of Swords. She is inward. She has carefully navigated difficult situations. She's gorgeous. Look at him. I love this King of Swords. This is a stunning deck. Shey knows me well. She's like, look. Okay, so that brings us, sorry, I'm going to get distracted because this is so gorgeous. So this brings us to the wands. I love the salamander. So here we have the Two of Wands here. With the, it's the beginning of things taking off is what it talks about. You know, you've just set your plans into motion. And then look at this image. Oh, look at the fox. Oh, I love this deck. Sorry, I got sidetracked because it's so gorgeous. This is beautiful. Again, you have that sense of the Four of Wands. You have the flowers there. You definitely have that sense of joyfulness and cheerfulness and celebration there with the flowers. And there's a lot more light to this than other ones. It's gorgeous. Five of Wands, very combative, you know, typical Five of Wands. It's that chaotic energy here, very aggressive fire. Fire can destroy, right? Love it. Sorry, I think I've been forgetting to show you these. Look at this six. You know, he's that kind of Six of Wands. He is coming from, it's interesting that they have communication here. Oh, look at, there's two of them. They're riding off together. I like that. Look. I like that. They're just, they're like little fairies that just got married. There's like a just got married sign on the back. But they're, I like that sense of achievement versus coming back from battle. I really love this Seven of Wands. That's sort of taking up, defending a position, defending a point. That they look very observant, very ready to defend their area. Look at this. I love this with the bees, the Nine of Wands. There is definitely the sense of, or Eight of Wands, I'm sorry. Their keyword is motion, and you can definitely see like that little squirrel better get itself out of the way. It needs to be ready to jump, either to take its opportunity and grab hold of, to get a hold of that, or just to get out of the way. But there's definitely that sense of energy and motion that you get with the Eight of Wands in the Rider-Waite-Smith. And it's mastery to be able to navigate, for me, mastery to be able to navigate this in the tipsy tops of the branches. Here we have a gorgeous Nine of Wands. I love this. They have the keyword here as collaboration. I really like that. They're working together here. I quite like that. Again, I like that they're not all, you know, they're, you can see a little bit of the Rider-Waite-Smith. in many of them, but definitely, oh, did I show you the black and, sorry, I was moving these away, but did I show you the King of Wands in black and white? Ugh. I like that they kind of also go off on their own. I like this idea of mutual interest and collaboration here. I'm going to sit with that one. I quite like it. Look at this 9 of Wands, or 10 of Wands. I love it. I mean, he can still walk. He can carry this. It's nothing he can't manage. One foot in front of the other. Here's the Page. He looks much more scholarly. Look at the Knight on the, again, I'm assuming on a salamander. He's not really going anywhere here, though. He's not in a rush. I feel like a Knight, the Wand Knight, should be a little more active, but I love the red tones. Queen of Wands. I love this very shaman-y King. These are really gorgeous. So then we come to, again, the Ace of Cups. Again, I love the greenness. This is under the canopy of green, reflecting all that green. Here we have the Two of Cups. This is so interesting. They're working together. He is like standing on the back of this dragonfly or something, but they are in complete balance with each other. Right, there is this connection between the two that allows them to work together. I love that. This is beautiful. I think that's actually a Jack in the Pulpit. That's beautiful. Now, generally, you see, you know, this more of a coming together with multiple. You'd think you'd see multiple fairies here. Wait, oh, we're in the cups. I was, yeah, the Three of Cups. It's late, but I still wanted to look at these. But this is about, they said it's about positivity. I guess there are, looks like maybe fairies off in the background. She seems to be more in communion with the flower, which is some communion with her surroundings, more than needing to, you know, have merrymaking with other fae. This is really beautiful with the Four of Cups. Silence, poetry, waiting. I love those keywords for the Four of Cups. Stillness, that works for me very well. Look at the Five of Cups with the broken ribbon between the two of them. Separation. Look at that. Look at the dog. Six of Cups, it has nostalgia. It's like he's looking back at where maybe he ran off into the forest, but he's looking back at where he grew up with the children. Here's the Seven of Cups. They have the Seven of Cups as wonder. That's really beautiful. But I think, you know, 7 for me is new growth that comes out of stability. There's this motion that's coming out of the stillness. I like this reaching for wonder and stretching towards wonder versus illusions and things. Again, I think you can still get to where you are, but I think that I love the openness of this. Look at this interesting creature. So the Eight of Cups is generally going off. Look at the arms and the legs. These roots look like arms. He looks like he's going to stand up and start walking. Although this has the Eight of Cups as melancholy and sad emotions, which I have seen some. There are some Eight of Cups with like the cups are broken. Wild unknown, I'm looking at you. But so you do get that sense, but I could also read that as he's about to get up and start walking. It's a tree that you're not expecting to move or to go away, but it's going to get up and start walking. Here's the Nine of Cups, which is really beautiful. Gratification, Wish fulfillment. I love the koi here. You know how you throw like a coin in for your wishes. And then there's this beautiful sense of abundance with the bees. Look at that gorgeous page. I'm sorry, I have been so bad in showing the backs. It's just beautiful. I love him. He's like on a flying fish or something, or her, for the night. Look at the gorgeous Queen of Water. Look at him. He's a swashbuckling water fae. And then that brings us to the coins. So here we have the Ace of Coins, which we had looked at. I love it. Interesting Two of Coins, isn't it? Let's see what they are going with on the Two of Coins. Swords, Wand, Chalices. I feel like I'm missing, oh, Pentacles, here we go. It's more of duration and chain of thoughts it talks about. Interesting. For me, this is about balance. She's balancing on this caterpillar. What I like is, I think that this is something you would sit with. You can start from the place of what if you think about, for me, if you think about the number 2, you're thinking about balance, you're thinking about duality, you're thinking those types of things. And we have two things here, right? 2 people. But between them is this sort of twisting source, and she's kind of stepped on that. So they're going to have to either very carefully balance, they're going to have to get away from what's between them so that they can have a balanced connection between them. So if you just start with the number and what the suit is about, I think it's really lovely that they are going off kind of in their own direction on some of these. Look at this 3 of Coins. I love this. Making their nest, learning to weave the nest. Oops, sorry. I love this for the 4 of Coins, because I think of the 4 of Coins as very much, well, number one, I can see where they're going with the house. So the materialism of people and having their possessions and having a home to put all the possessions in. So I can certainly see that. But there's also something very insular about this. It says it's nighttime. The forest is all around you. This isn't a time to be going off and putting your resources outside. This is a time to be inside. So... Here we have the 5 of Coins. We definitely have a salamander or snake. Oh, it looks like a snake, right? That is in a bit of a pickle here. It needs to get up out of the water, and yet there's spikes everywhere. It's going to have to very carefully navigate that situation. This is gorgeous. The 6 of Coins. Gifts. Wish upon a shooting star. Oh, I love both sides to that. Here we have the 7 of Coins. They just have this as home. But you can also see that stairway up that you can sometimes see in the 7 of Coins, that idea of things coming into fruition. There is a feeling of waiting as you're kind of still on the path here. So I think even if you read this in a Rider-Waite-Smith sense, you can still get there. And certainly growth coming out of stability, you can see with the stairs building its way up as well. Look at that 8 of Coins. Mastery. That is mastery. 9 of Coins. Everybody working together. I quite like that. Look at that. Like he's a little helping them. They're gonna work together. I love that. And I think it's stunning. 10 of Pentacles. Abundance. Here we have the quartz. So we have the page here. Again, not on a horse. Much more. Oh, look at the messages. I love this Knight of Pentacles. He is awesome. Beautiful queen. Look, I love how her feet are. And then the king. He's like, seems like he's sitting down in a rock. Very solid. Roots growing out of his head. Posture is very masculine solidness. This is gorgeous. This is an absolutely beautiful deck. It's not a deck I probably would use for clients, although I think you could. But for myself, oh my goodness. It's like the Fae Tarot deck I've been waiting for. It's a little stiff to riffle backwards. Usually I can, yeah, it just probably needs to break in. I say, Low Scarabeo I actually quite like to shuffle. Perhaps, well, there's always gonna, yeah, I had to break in. Low Scarabeo is good, I think is good card stock. Yeah, to break in. Again, for me, the backing just adds a beautiful layer to it, and it doesn't affect the way I read, because I'm just going to slide. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to, it doesn't matter if I can see the back at all, but look at, oh, I just love that. I think I love the black and white of that even more. So for me, it's like, okay. In the past, we have a little Tens of Swordsies. In the future, we have the very active Hierophant. I quite like that. I keep thinking active learning. We have the King of Pentacles, that solid groundedness in the position of fire for me. We have the Queen of Pentacles in the position of air. We have the gorgeous, I love the Six of Cups here. In this idea of nostalgia, in the emotions position, and oh, we've got a little separation going on in the position of earth. As above, we have ideas are about to take off, and on the foundation is the spark of fire. I love the coloration. It's very subtle, but it's also very obvious. It's really gorgeous. You know what would probably look really beautiful with this? Is this deck. Dialgro set that same gorgeous, moody coloration. It's beautiful. It's very earthy. If you love Fae energy that is much more loamy and earthy and under the canopy of the green, I think you would love this. If you love seeing sort of where it started and where it ended up and what those things might speak to you of the artist process, if you're willing to stretch a little bit, right? I think that, but you can see where they're coming from. I do believe this was very mindfully done as a tarot deck. Everybody has different understandings of the cards, and I feel like they were, going from their way that they see the cards. And I think that if you're willing to stretch a little bit, this is going to be a beautiful deck for me to work with. So I'm really looking forward. Just going to go right onto my own working space to do some work with. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So I hope that you've enjoyed this as much as me. I have a feeling this is going to be a little long, but that's okay. That's to be expected with me. So I hope that you've enjoyed this as much as I have, and have an absolutely wonderful day.